Alrighty, so hi everyone. Welcome to our October webinar, which is cyber roles in the energy sector. First and foremost, before we jump into everything, I know we have a good amount of folks here from Florida, at least, that signed up. So I hope you all are safe wherever you're at by participating in this, as I see a good amount of UCF folks on here. I know we had some University of Florida folks that signed up. So I hope wherever you are, you're bunkered in for the night. So first and foremost, before we get too far, I know a lot of you also know this, but let's go through our normal cadence here. So we want to thank the Office of Cybersecurity, Energy Security, and Emergency Response, CSER for short, for supporting the CyberForce program and our webinar series here, which we'll be going through again, the cyber roles in the energy sector, which again, we will go much more deep into that. I know a lot of you today are joining us as well because I did tell you I would give a hint out for the competition coming up here in just about a month. Actually, a month to the day. Stay tuned. That comes all the way at the end of this great webinar. So let's not waste any time. I have an amazing panel here. I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to ask questions. So we have Sherry here. We have Tina and Zach. So without further ado, place any of your questions into the chat so that we can have them asked by you guys rather than just me. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, hopefully, maybe. And I'm going to turn it over to them by asking some questions here to start. So we're going to just go around and I'm going to, instead of me introducing you all, I'm going to have you introduce yourselves. So I'm going to go, I have Sherry, Tina, and Zach. That's how my screen looks right now. So Sherry, can you introduce yourself and provide a brief background of your current role or your role that makes most sense to where you fall in the energy sector?
And they probably both do. By the way, that was a fist pump for UCF, my undergrad alumni. Shari Gribben, and I am the managing partner for a hybrid legal and consulting solutions firm. We specialize in cybersecurity, supply chain security, and we do both legal, regulatory work, compliance, but we also do program process controls, build, development, kind of all kinds of strategic advisory, all kinds of stuff. And there's a reason for that, which is prior to this, I was 15 years in-house at Exelon. I had a dual role for most of my career, leading NERC as the lead counsel and sole counsel for NERC for all assets, all regions for the whole company, 693 and SIP. And then I was also the manager of FERC compliance. So I built all the FERC regulatory compliance programs on the business side of that. And then I went to Deloitte for 5 years to do cyber risk and regulatory across a lot of other sectors, as well as energy and some global. So all of that fed into where I am now. And I love what I do. So
Thank you. Tina?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tina Garcia. I work out of Sacramento for a electric utility. I am a cybersecurity risk specialist, but I used to be in help desk. So there's hope. There's hope to make it out of help desk. That just goes to show. Previously, I wanted to do and study law, and then I did an internship, and I was like, you know what? I think I like fixing computers. And then I fixed some computers, and I was like, there's a lot of, when you work in help desk, you pinpoint a lot of weaknesses and a lot of possible security issues. And I was like, you know what? I think security would be a really, really good jump from there. But pretty much kind of glazing over it. And now I work in cybersecurity. So if there's hope, I'm your sign that there is. And that's about it for me.
It's great. We'll go much further into it. And Zach.
Hey everyone, I'm Zach Borden. I work at Platte River Power Authority, a smallish utility here in northern Colorado, serving 4 municipal electric systems. My title is very long. It's a DER, Distributed Energy Resources Service Manager. So, maybe some of you know what DERs are, but think of, solar batteries, EVs, thermostats, water heaters, anything that's smart, consumes electric, or is flexible. That's kind of what a DER is. I've always been into the power supply things, so modeling, how many generators you need, or different power plants to serve a muni load or a city load. But really, we'll get into it today, but things are changing, and I really got interested in more of the load side, especially as the utility I work at transitions to a non-carbon future. So it's going to be even more important to have flexibility and when you consume electricity, because you can't choose how you ramp up generation into that non-carbon future. It's weather dependent. It depends if the sun's out or if the wind's blowing. So very, very fun stuff, and super happy to be here.
Thank you. So Tina, I'll jump to you first now on this one, because you kind of touched on it a little bit, but you wanted to go into law first, you did an internship, then you completely did a computer, you wanted to kind of help desk. So then how did you kind of get your aha moment of change and where your role is now?
So I always tell people this is like the weirdest story, but maybe someone will relate eventually. When I was in college, I actually took a class that had us take something called the True Colors test, which is pretty much gold, orange, blue, and green. And based off of that test, it would tell you what careers would be like best for you. I winded up ranking high in both, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a couple years. Sorry, guys. Blue and green, which was law, and then the other one was doing IT. And I was like, you know what? Why not try IT? I happened to run into someone that needed like a student assistant, and I just like delved in, and I was like, oh my gosh, I actually love this, but I still love the law aspect of things. So I continued my bachelor's or my progression because I was already kind of far in there. And long behold, I was like, that insecure self that you're like, no, maybe not computer science. Maybe I should just stick to law. And winded up finding an internship as a legislative assistant working here at the Capitol. So I was like, it's a win-win. Winded up doing it. And I was like, I don't think this is a win-win. I don't think this is where I want to go. So I was still in school, and I winded up getting reached out to by SMUD, which is the electric utility that I work for out of Sacramento. And I was like, maybe this is a prank call. Maybe it's, spam or something. I didn't even remember applying as something for IT, and then winded up getting picked up. And then from there, it was just kind of history. I was like, this is it. This is for me. I'm naturally a very curious person. I ask a lot of questions. So to my mom, it's annoying, but to me, it is really, really interesting to find out about everything. So that's how I ended up kind of ending up in cyber. So I hope that kind of answers that.
No, that's perfect. So I'll go to you, Zach. How did you get into DERs and where you fall now?
Yeah, so I studied in college at Ohio State, business and sustainability. It was a fairly new major at the time. I really, I grew up very rural Ohio, creek behind my house, loved, the outdoors and loved the environment. So I started off doing environmental science, but quickly found more interest in the business side of things, which led me to that degree. In that degree, I took an energy economics course, and it was really, really fascinating because they showed, at the start of the course, they showed two big graphics. One was a pie chart of the current makeup of the grid, large centralized power plants far from the end consumer, coal, gas, you know, very large. You only need a few of those, nuclear. And then I saw another graph, which was the declining cost of things like solar, batteries, computing power, all of these distributed technologies. And, we all realized, this is a horse and buggy to car event. A few hundred years, industries have an event like this where you transition from a horse and buggy to a car. We're transitioning from a grid that's centralized power plant far from the. As a consumer, you could be your own utility and create your own power and store that power. So it got me really interested. I saw there's lots of opportunities in the industry. There's also noticed an older workforce, and there wasn't, when I talked to my peers in college, like, hey, are you interested in the utility sector? No one thought that was interesting. They're all like Amazon, Microsoft, all of these tech companies. I realized, there's a workforce that's retiring. They're willing to pay great money, great benefits. This is the industry I need to be in. So I networked as hard as possible. I reached out to so many people in the industry just to have a conversation. Was shocked by all the people who said, yes, I'll talk to you. I'll grab coffee with you. And kind of worked myself into a place where I understood that utility environment in Ohio, and kept applying for jobs. So landed that first job, and yeah, the rest is history.
No, that's great. And I think to your point, like networking and utilities is so underrated. I still think even now, even with some of the tech companies, major layoffs, I still think the utilities are very forgotten. So I'm glad you said that. Sherry, the question even came up in chat, so I'm going to ask you, how did you get into cyber law in the energy field?
Yeah, so a couple of things is, first, cyber law did not exist when I started my law career. I was a young lawyer. I started right out of law. I actually clerked. I worked through law school, so I clerked in my last year for PECO, the Philadelphia utility at the time, just as they were closing the merger that created Exelon, which eventually would be, they fought amongst themselves, but the biggest utility and the power and utility in the country, which gave it matters because it gave me a really unique opportunity. I got really lucky in that I clerked there in my last semester, was offered a job right out of law school. So I came in-house right out of law school. In my first year, I did what you do, customer complaints, got to go make your bones. But it's a fantastic way to learn the ins and outs of the company, just like help desk is. It's a fantastic way to learn the ins and outs of the company. Because of the merger, was given an immediate, within a year, opportunity for all kinds of crisis projects and initiatives. And so I was able to scale really quickly, much more quickly than you would normally. And because I was a younger lawyer, I was assigned IT, security, and electric and gas operations and reliability. Pay dirt. Like, you can't get a better opportunity. And if you combine that with the fact that I really like I wasn't a shopper. You wouldn't find me in a mall, but you could find me walking around Best Buy all day. So I really liked technical stuff and tangible technical stuff. So every single issue that I worked throughout my career, and this is key, I think, no matter what your job is, for the other people that you're working with and supporting, every single issue I worked, every case, I sat down with my technical people to really learn the ins and outs of what they did. And because I covered all those areas, I had a really unique opportunity to learn. So I know modeling, I know facility ratings, I know firewalls, I know DMZs, I know all of it because I went in and met with every single one. And I just happened to do it for 15 years. So I went to line school, I went to gas school, I took every option available to really learn. So I have my Holiday Inn Express credentials across the operations. And then because we were such a broad portfolio, we had every single type of asset and operation in the power sector. And I crossed the whole company. I also got to learn all aspects of it, which meant getting to DERs, that when we began to build Grid of the Future, I really had also an opportunity, and do now a lot of work, helping to pivot that sector into what we call the fundamentals from power and utility: safe, reliable, secure, cost-effective service, and help them understand how to really pivot and operate and run in a new technology way, but to those legacy fundamentals. So I get to do a lot in that space as well now. And by the way, when I started, cyber was IT domain. We literally did like web disclaimers and domain stuff. And security was physical security, mostly reading their procedures and responding to copper thefts. But then FERC got its authority, and NERC got established as the ERO. And because I was in those, I was assigned both. And then I worked all the pre-urgent action standards and all the cyber, and that's how I learned cybersecurity. We were the only critical infrastructure that is full framework cyber regulated, still to this day, by the way, and has been now for 15 years, but there was a 10-year ramp up for that. So that's how I became a cybersecurity lawyer, and eventually also supply chain security, because I worked all of that as we implemented.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna ask a quick question that came in for the thing in our chat. It says, what would your recommendation, and this can go to any of you, so I'm not, and to anyone, what would your recommendation be for, I'm going to guess, non-technical people to learn technology that's necessary to get into cybersecurity? Do you guys have any recommendations for those that are non-technical?
Hurrying first, because I feel like Tina, you probably have some good ones. Yeah. For me, I think I kind of answered in my full answer, which was really take the time to sit down. And I would say, by the way, we need all the other skill sets as much, if not more, because we really have a challenge in cybersecurity, and that for so long, cyber evolved as like this, IT and cyber were like this function over here that was like, just make sure you get it right and do it, you know, and the rest of the business was not integrated, and vice versa. And so you have a lot of technical speeds that are fantastic, but they don't have risk. They don't have business acumen. They don't know how to talk to leadership. So we need all of those skill sets. And then we also need to develop our technical people that way. So mostly my answer would be take every opportunity to learn as you go. In addition to, I'm sure some of the younger professionals probably have some specific ideas on programs and other stuff.
So I can kind of give a little bit of background. I'm a big advocate for you do not have to be a technical person to get into a cyber job. The one thing you do have to have is the ability and the willingness to want to learn technical things. So for example, I do come from like a technical background because of the work that I did. So I know a lot of ins and outs that people at a higher level don't necessarily know, because I dealt with a lot of different applications. And one of the things that I'm still learning to this day is networking. Networking is a very, very big thing. Both networking, when I'm talking routers, switches, firewalls, all that stuff, and then networking in the sense of the people that you're communicating day in and day out. You cannot teach people skills, but or you can. It's harder though. It's harder, but you can always teach technical. So don't let that discourage you. For me right now, like as I mentioned, I'm still taking networking classes in the sense of learning about firewalls, learning about switches. I deal with specific standards that are a little bit more technical because of the background that I have. So, for example, like electronic security perimeter, which is CIT5. You guys probably don't know what this terminology means, but think about it. There's like a specific group where anything that has to do with the internet access that's coming in and out of certain substations or anything like that, the way that you read that, the way that you interpret that information, finding risks, things of that sort, to try and keep it short and simple. But one, willingness to want to learn. You do not have to be technical. I really want anyone on the phone call to know that. You just have to be willing to learn and be willing to find that specific niche. So I would start, if specifically there's OT security that deals with the actual applications, and then you have more of the governance, the risk side of things, which is more of what I do. Although I do not touch the applications day in and day out, there are certain things that I do have to know about the applications, but that's where I contact the subject matter experts, also known as SMEs. So that's when I will loop them in and they will let me know this is what you can or can't do. And you don't have to be the SME, but be willing to grab that information from them so that you keep it in a repository in your mind and then you can apply it later on. So that would be my personal advice. And I know a lot of people don't want to do help desk roles, and I get it. You don't have to get into cyber to do a help desk role, but it does help you a lot, especially because the calls that you're taking in, you don't know who you're going to talk to one day. That might just be the director, that might just be a manager that's looking for someone to train. So be very willing to open yourself up. Even if you're a shy person, just throw yourself out there. The worst you're going to get is a no. You're already at no, so no big deal.
Anything to add there, Zach?
Yeah, those were really great points. That last one is really, really important. treating every day like an interview. You never know who you're going to talk to or what that next opportunity is. I'm not a technical person. You know, my background economics and planning, but I have to talk to a lot of technical people when it comes to cybersecurity. So, you know, being willing to, you know, explain your perspective on where the industry is headed and kind of things you're working on, and trying to get those folks excited and thinking differently about kind of where they've always been in the past, which is, you know, focused on cybersecurity at one power plant or one kind of control desk, where in the future it's going to be, you know, all of these distributed energy resources that we have to, you know, keep in mind. We can't have ramp up and ramp down. So it's, yeah, it's, I think Sherry and Tina hit on some really good points. And
No, that's perfect. I think I would just, and I'm only going to add my 2 cents here and then I'll be done, I promise. Is I think at the end of the day, and I think the purpose behind this great panel here is to remind people that cyber, we tend to put on the hat of it being technical. And we are here today to remind people that cybersecurity is got so many branches that we've grown out of that tree at this point, that are compliance, that you need to still stem out of understanding, you know, the basics of cyber. We have managerial, we have legal, we have people that are communications that stem out of cyber. You have the true technical people that are, you know, to your scenario of security, you know, when you think of physical, your guns, gates, guards type security for cyber. And so there is a cybersecurity place that can be tangential without being super technical, but sometimes it's you need to understand the layer without actually having to do the layer, I think is what most people need to, you need to be able to, your point, Tina, you need to learn it or be able to be willing to understand it, not necessarily have to do it. Okay, so now I'm gonna be quiet and get off my box here. But Zach, there's a question for you that came in. What's the best way, if any, to get exposure to DER ICS technologies without having to be in an internship or career?
yeah, that's a great question. There are tons of resources online on this subject. Luckily, when I was in college, I had Green Tech Media that had podcasts and so many great articles. They were absorbed by, I think it's Wood Mackenzie. So you can still access some of those kind of articles. There's great podcasts like The Interchange and things like that. So just, you know, take Google and run with it as many, you know, questions of you have as you have, and find, you know, those interesting stories of what utilities and what developers and what communities are doing with DERs. And then once you have a good base knowledge, start looking on LinkedIn at people that have, you know, DER experience. Reach out and have a conversation and ask them, you know, critically, you know, think critically about questions you can ask them that will just take your knowledge further and further. And, you know, before you know it, then you're starting to sound like an expert, and you can start, you know, going into interviews and sounding, you know, like you know your stuff, and you at that point will know your stuff. So yeah, just don't be afraid to get on Google and just keep going down rabbit holes of DERs. But like I said, Green Tech Media, there's podcasts, Wood Mackenzie, Interchange.
Yeah, can I add to that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and for a plug, absolutely go to the National Lab pages. They have tons of content. INL in particular spends a lot of energy putting out white papers, really well done ones on risks to DER and IBR, ICS and OT technologies. There's a whole series coming up. I'm working with them, so that's why I know on some of the risks associated with these technologies. And they really work hard to put it into plain language. They're doing some webinars and stuff like that. So that's one place to go. Also go to the trade association, SEIA, the Solar Energy Trade Association, and American Clean Power put content out, and they put it in more layman's terms as well, because they have a lot of members that aren't technical. So those are also some additional good resources. And I love your suggestion. It's one of my top suggestions, to find connections on LinkedIn that look credible. You gotta be real careful these days, right? And talk about that stuff. It's a good way to learn.
Yeah, EPRI is another kind
Yeah,
of resource there. The DOE, is it the Pathways Project, the new VPP liftoff white paper? Start there. That might be the best kind of place. MIT always has great white papers on the future utility, things like that. There's tons of resources.
Focused on the munis and the co-ops, so NRECA as well, because they are really focused on how do we really expand and build out these alternative approaches and microgrids, because of the scale and because they tend to be at the local distribution level.
And the last thing I'll say is we had, when I was in college at Ohio State in Columbus, we had conferences once in a while focused on energy. There were kind of groups that met. Find a local group that talks about this. Even reach out to conferences and say, hey, I'll help volunteer if I can sit in on this session or something like that. You'll be shocked at, you know, the willingness there and the acceptance. So
one thing I would also add for those of you that would like to go into the energy space, not to hype it up, but it does have its good benefits. It's like exactly like Zach said, but you guys should also check their websites and see if they have any student internships available, because chances are, because they know that you're coming out of college, or some of you are still in college, if you express what type of interest they do, they are willing to match you with specific departments that might deal with the things that you're looking into. I know for my specific utility, we bring in so many Sacramento State students or students from like all over, and a lot of them wind up getting hired. Like I don't want to throw random numbers, but most of the people that I have seen come through as internships or student assistants wind up getting hired, and the pay is good for being out of college. I will say that.
I guess I'll have one more piece here. Sorry. That, you know, I'm a big fan of like early stage companies and startups and incubators and things like that. You know, most people think utilities are boring, but there's a lot of incubation, a lot of accelerator programs. So even like do some tech scouting, try to find, you know, early stage companies in your area that are working on solutions for the energy grid, you know, the current kind of shift that we're seeing. And, you know, maybe volunteer, maybe just reach out to see what they're working on. Because those early stage companies, yeah, they love, you know, all the help they can get.
Awesome. All right, so now we're gonna, I don't want to say shift because we're not shifting. We're still talking about your jobs. But I'm gonna come back to you, Zach, because you know you were actually next in line. I know you were just chit-chatting with us, but so what do you find most enjoyable about your work? But I also want to know what you find most challenging about your work.
Yeah, a lot of people that I talk to, you know, if you would have asked them this question, most of them would say, you know, the best thing about working for a utility is it doesn't change. You know, it's very consistent. I don't have to worry. Well, it's changing quite a bit now, and I like that aspect. I like, you know, changing rapidly and trying to figure out what's, you know, on the horizon and how, you know, utility can best kind of prepare for that. So that's very rewarding, but it's also very hard because you're constantly shifting. You're constantly trying to adjust to a decision you made a month ago that's just not working out anymore. It's both a blessing and a curse. It's great because it's changing a lot. You have to adapt, and it's fun, keeps you on your toes, but you have to be careful, you know, when you make a decision. You know, utilities are historically, you make a decision on rates, and we're going to keep that rate for the next 10 years and be good with it. But that's just not where we are today. So it makes it pretty difficult.
Sherry, same question. What's most enjoyable about your work, but also what is the most challenging?
most enjoyable would be that I really get, and when I was in I built my career in, as I say, Fortune 100 and Big Four, right? So while I was in house, I did get a unique opportunity to really define what I do. So I had a little more autonomy about being able to pick things and do great things. When I was at Deloitte, you don't get as much space for that because you gotta meet metrics and do all these other things. When I jumped out, this is my firm, by the way, and started my firm. One of the key goals was that I wanted to get back into industry and be part of the solution leaders. So I really get to sit at the table for some of the biggest task force and initiatives that are crossing the industry and bring all that kind of cross sector and cross functional expertise to help solve the problem. That's what I wanted to do, and nobody gets to tell me a metric, so I get to decide how much time I spend doing that. So I love that. I wanted to use my brain. The most challenging is a piece builds on what Zach said. The landscape is changing really rapidly, both across energy operations, how we're gonna make it affordable for everybody, so the rate structures, as well as security. And we're just overwhelmed and inundated with changing data points every single day. So keeping up with all of that while also trying to design solutions that are strategic and long term is really challenging.
I can see that for sure. And last but not least, Tina, same question. What's most enjoyable and what's most challenging?
For me, like I mentioned, I love to learn. So any tidbit of information when I'm talking to SMEs, I'm like geek out. Just tell me everything. Even if I don't understand the verbiage, I'll take notes and I'll like reference it after the fact. Just geek out and explain this to me in your terminology. And then if I have questions, then afterwards you can kind of simplify it down. So the amount of information that I know now is actually crazy because I'll be driving by and there's a substation. I'm like, did you notice that? Did you notice that? Did you notice that? And my friends are like, can you stop? Like, you're not at work right now. And I'm like, I'm just trying to geek out, guys. So that's the most enjoyable part of my job. The most challenging, specifically to the role that I do, is probably the standards that are coming through or like the changes or new requirements that are being added to standards just because we have, for example, virtualization. What does that look like now? AI, the cloud, all of these things that are need to be touched on because we keep going and people are moving with the times and utilities cannot afford to stay back. Like you have to move with the times or else you're pretty much opening up yourself to risk. So I think that's the most challenging because just when you think you're caught up, psych, you're not actually caught up. They have like 50 more things that just rolled down. And now you got to go back and talk to your SMEs and see, hey, how can we mitigate whatever risks you guys are finding and do that within like a certain time frame, whether that's a month or whether that's 5 months, whether that's a year, which seems like a lot, but when you, depending on the size of your utility, that can be a very tedious job. So I would say that that's probably the most challenging.
I want to actually touch on something that you just said with a question that just came in a little bit ago about the AI and whatnot. So I presume that some of the impacts of AI and whatnot on utilities and energy in general have some challenges for you all. What are you foreseeing this could be in the near future?
I can, without giving too much, just because the nature of the things I do, I will say the amount of requests that we get because everyone wants to jump. Technology is good when you use it for good. Technology is bad when you use it for bad. So I think one of the main things that we're seeing right now is there's a lot of people in the organization that do want to implement AI, but how do we do that in a way where we can be safe to make sure like anything that's like bulk electric system information is not freely available for everyone's utility out in the landscape of the cloud. So I think it's having to really narrow down like what risk acceptance the organization is willing to take versus what are things that are really like we can't afford to be able to allow everyone to use a particular tool. Let's say it was, I'm not saying it's this, but let's say it's ChatGPT, let's say Microsoft Copilot, all these things that are coming through. It seems like every week there's like a new AI tool. And these organizations are still at the stage of, okay, what policies are we going to implement? How is this going to look for the everyday employee and the way that they navigate their work and the way that they do their work to ensure that no plagiarism, no sensitive information is kind of floating around in the world. So it is a headache. I'm not going to say it's not, because it is. But I do see a couple of organizations implementing good things and starting to kind of really strategize the way that they're going to approach that.
Sherry, Zach, do either of you have anything you want to add on the AI challenges that you foresee in the near term?
Yeah, I can go if that's okay, Sherry. Yeah, so I think Tina brought up some good points, like using the AI tools that we're constantly coming out with. Being careful with that. For me, I have to critically think about, am I going to use this tool for a day and it's going to be stranded after that point, and I'm not going to continue to use this over and over and make good I guess use out of it. So I have to think about kind of the longer run of trying not to waste time on some cool fresh new tool that's just getting a lot of buzz, and think critically about how I'm going to use this tool over the long haul. When the question first came in, I thought more about it as, from my perspective, creating a power supply portfolio to meet the load of all of these new CNI data centers, or CNI customers, data centers, AI computing loads. I mean, that's going to add significant computing power and electric need. So there's a lot of cool things to think about there. I'll I guess use just two examples. One is we're seeing a lot of these data centers navigate towards interconnecting at a wind or solar farm. So you have a big developer, they're looking to sell a solar wind farm to a utility. Utility looks at that and says, it's too expensive for me. But then a data center is saying, well, I can't get interconnection over the next 5 years because supply chain issues. That actually solar wind farm looks pretty attractive to me compared to a retail rate. So we're seeing a lot of trends where larger developers are bringing in data centers to their sites they're building, and then firming up the energy around the wind or solar production. So that's one note. The other thing is it's really important to think creatively about how you can design future programs. So say a data center, a Bitcoin miner comes into your load, or to your, I guess, service territory. Maybe think a little bit about how you can create a DER program around that load. So one project I've worked on is there was a Bitcoin mining facility that came in. It's we call it a base load. It's constant 24/7 consumption. And then what we did is we added a solar facility to that. We added it so it was a little bit more than the consumption. So say the max consumption is 5 megawatts, the solar spits out maybe 10 megawatts. What was cool about that contract is we got the data center to be able to curtail at some moment. So if electricity prices were really high and we wanted to liquidate more solar into the market, we would curtail that Bitcoin mining facility. So creating these contracts that are very innovative for you to have flexibility is really important. So think about flexibility of how AI consumes load. Think about where they're siting these facilities, and think about the long run of utilizing the tools. It's not just using it, for an email you want to send. How can you really help this organization with AI?
Yeah,
that was one.
I'll add. So I'm going to pick two kind of opposites, okay, or distinct points. One is because I come at it from several angles. So one is security. A lot of tools and apps and everybody is jamming AI into everything, creates huge security risks, especially when they're by default. A lot of people don't understand. And particularly we work in critical infrastructure. So I have to constantly remind people, especially if you're smaller and you don't have an enterprise application and you're like a third party intern or a contractor, if you're using Adobe and they've done it by default, NERC SIP binders are built in Adobe, and you've just given them permission to take everything out of your NERC SIP binder and feed it into their tool. That's problematic. You're sending all critical infrastructure data into a tool that's not regulated for security in the way we are. So I have to constantly remind people, all of these tools you're feeding information to are cloud-based, not secure, private companies that are not regulated. They can do anything they want with the data. And that puts us all at a lot of risk. We just need to be a lot more mindful about how we're using them and making sure that we're not just putting anything in there, and that we're turning off those default AI uses in many of our applications. So there's a little PSA on that. On the other side of it, I also work energy sector reliability. Zach touched on it. There's a huge policy fight brewing about what you do is, so Bitcoin you can curtail, but can you curtail a data center? More and more that's going to be framed as critical infrastructure, right? And then as those data centers gobble up huge amounts of power, who gets priority when grid resources start to get constrained? And that's starting to become a big policy fight, because the big tech companies are going basically around the regs and the structures for this that determine that, to go behind the meter, restart nuclear generation and stuff like that, build some of their own. Building your own is different, because then you actually have invested and built it yourself. But if you're pulling baseload resources like a nuclear plant back online to support a data center, but then there's a big hurricane and that power is needed, right? Who gets priority? And the data centers, because they're going around the structures, are arguing they do. And I think that is something we have got to get ahead of.
Awesome. All right, we're going to circle around for our final piece of advice. I know we have a lot of questions still in the chat, but just to make sure that we get at least our last piece in here, I'm going to start with Tina here. So you're gonna have to unmute yourself, so don't give what I'm gonna say before you unmute.
Okay, go for it. Hopefully I don't fail.
I know this could be a pass-fail moment here. We're looking for your best piece of advice to give to the group today. For them, again, most people on here are collegiate or looking at their early career. So if you were back in that position where you're at now, what would you give them?
Two quick ones, hopefully quick. One, networking. The energy space is very small, so if you talk to one person, I guarantee you that one person will probably lead you to eventually your job, as it has with me. I really opened myself up. I talked with, as hard as it is to want to be in a bubble, I was like, you got ears, I will talk to you. Okay, whatever, literally anything in the book, I will talk your ear off, like if I'm talking to the wall. And that, I feel like that really helped me be able to connect with a lot of different people, not just within my organization, but outside that deal in different cyberspaces. And then the second one is for those of you, and this is just going to be, it works for this, but just in general, if you guys have not heard of something called the STAR method interviewing, I would definitely advise everybody to look into it. So it stands for situation, task, action, and result. And this is a way, if they ask you, tell me about a difficult time where you've had to deal with someone, most organizations usually tend to ask that. Think of a scenario that you know for a fact you can kind of pivot. Talk about the specific situation. Talk about the task that you took on. Talk about the action you took. Talk about the end result of it. Most interviews, if you answer those, if you can hit those four things, I guarantee you, like chances are you're going to be pretty high up there in the interview process. There's a lot of YouTube videos. One thing, as AI is good when it wants to be good, you can type something up, put it into ChatGPT, and let's say you have the structure of it, but you just don't know how to word it better. Just type it into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, this is my situation. How can I pivot this in a STAR method?" And it'll break it down for you. And go over like four specific scenarios that you know you can apply to different areas. And I guarantee you that will help you so much in your process of trying to find a job. It's what's helped me. I know Apple, I believe Apple, Amazon, and Facebook all use the STAR method when they do their interview process. Don't quote me. I believe they do. So I would definitely advise anyone that's wanting, if you just want to get a job, period, the STAR method is going to help you so much. So I definitely advocate for that.
Sherry, what is your piece of advice?
I would say also too, I would say, I touch on this. You have to be really open to learning at all times, and open to kind of whatever opportunity or path. Follow the path a little bit that just appearing in front of you. You never could have predicted 25 years ago that being the lawyer assigned to IT, security, reliability, and operations would be a gold mine now. I did it because I really love to learn, and I was doing something really technical where I got that opportunity every day. And then the other thing I would say is definitely stick to things, learn them, finish a bit, but also be willing to think outside the box. Almost every single job I've had in my career, no, maybe every job, I designed. So I went to my leadership and said, there's really a need for this, and I'm going to fill it, and here's how. And I did the work, and I established that I was willing to do the work to build the case for it, and then do it. But you really can kind of design your own career if you really put thought into it and are open to it.
I love that. And Zach, I know you got the hardest because you were last, and so now
Yeah,
we just gave
we've
4. So
given
it's your
great,
turn.
we've given great advice this whole time. Yeah, like networking, Googling. With the networking thing though, ask questions, but more importantly, like ask for clarification. If you don't understand something, keep digging, because there's been so many times in my life where I didn't ask the follow-up question, I didn't keep digging, and it popped up later on the road, and I could have been like, oh, I know that, but I didn't, because I didn't ask that next question, because I felt maybe like I was going to be dumb or sound dumb, and that's just not the case. Like, it's curiosity. So that's a big one. Follow-up questions, persistence, yeah, like even reaching out to folks. Like, don't be afraid to, if you haven't heard back, send another message. Or in an organization, when you're out of work, at a job, and you're working on a problem, like Sherry said, with thinking creatively and thinking about it differently, don't be afraid to raise your hand and ask, like, have we ever thought about doing it this way? Or is there a different approach to this? um, that's a big one. And being persistent about that, like asking the questions, like, why haven't we done it this way? Have we tried to do it this way? What didn't go right? All of those types of things. Because you can definitely change things in this industry. You can make some really innovative things happen. There's a lot of great utilities that are pushing kind of the boundaries there, and a lot of great early companies that are doing the same. So
Those are all really great pieces of advice. So I first want to say thank you to all of you for taking the time to be on this panel today. And if I unmuted these people, they would also be able to say that as well. But again, I am the Zoom queen right now, so I have them all muted right now so that we don't take over everything. So again, thank you. And Tina, I know this is during work hours, so I appreciate you taking the time on Pacific time to do this for us. So thank you. I'm going to pause recording because I know that a lot of people are also on. All right. I want to say thank you once again to all of you for joining. If you have 2 moments, I guess we have a few minutes here because everyone's laughing at me now. I think there was a few more questions in here.
I saw one that I wanted to answer.
Please go ahead.
I did see one that I wanted to answer. So I think it was referencing OT security, like which jobs
And OT and IT
would be
use
more in demand or
conjunction.
coming up. Yeah, so one thing I would definitely look into is if you can take any classes, or even just LinkedIn offers a lot of like little certificates that you can take. I would put anything that has to do with AI, put it in your resume. Just put it in your resume. AI is a big one that a lot of organizations are looking at. I have friends that don't just work in the energy sector, they work outside of that as well. And they've brought that up as a big one. vulnerability management is a big thing that I see a lot of postings starting to come up about it. You do have to do a little bit more research when it comes to vulnerability management. So just keep an eye out on that. And then there's something called internal controls, which could be the way that an organization can address. Let's say you have, like, how do you make sure that a user doesn't have access to something? You lock it down, you make it like a request that you have to ask for in order for you to be able to do it. I see internal controls being a very, very big thing in a lot of spaces. So I would definitely look at those as well. But if I had to choose out of the three, like the top one, AI, hands down.
I thought this question was interesting too, the ITOT. And I was thinking more of like, how are these current roles going to change in the future? And it just goes back to my kind of points I've made is, we've historically been a centralized system where you have maybe a few power plants and a low premise, security SCADA network system. And in the future, as we, go from these large power plants to power plants being in the residence, the commercial, industrial customers, there's going to be a focus outside of the utility. How do we help customers troubleshoot their devices? How do we help customers keep their devices secure and safe? Because those are going to be the future power plants, the water heaters, the electric vehicles, the batteries in the homes. If their Wi-Fi goes out, my grandma has a hard enough time trying to figure out how to get it back on, but how do you connect it back to the EV and the battery? That's a whole different kind of side of things. So she's not going to adopt an EV anytime soon, but that's a bad example. I'm just saying, it's all the resources are going back out into the kind of the customer's home. So how do we keep those secure and online?
Yeah, I tried to reply in the chat while you're talking because I have to use a mouse and I could use a keyboard. Actually, I replied only to Dylan and one person. But for OT, follow Mike Holcomb, HOLCOMB, on LinkedIn. He puts out a lot of good OT basics guides. He's like kind of the guy who likes to teach everybody OT and ICS. So he's a great one to follow. And I would say hybrid is going to be a thing. A lot of the renewable sector is hybrid. In fact, half of them think they don't have IT. They do. But IT is more enterprise and OT is more operations. But as everything evolves and moves into cloud and AI and all of that, they're going to have to evolve into more of a hybrid model.
My answer, Tom from Florida. Have we figured out yet how to take this category 4 hurricane and convert it into electrical energy yet? Are we moving that way at this point?
That's the wind.
Can we get there?
Yeah, a lot of those facilities probably have to curtail or turn off because it's just too powerful. Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's offshore wind, but do they have that in kind of the Gulf? I don't know how much wind energy is down in Florida and those states. I know there's, solar being adopted. But that's a good question. And there's also companies that are starting to do tidal energy and from waves. That's a pretty cool technology. So again, just, I'm sure you could Google that. Like, are there wind farms that harness hurricanes and typhoons? And maybe there's a company out there that does it.
I would beg to say that it'll eventually be a thing. If we can do geothermal, I think there's hope.
Well, once we get
maybe a long ways, but maybe.
Once we get battery storage viability, all of it becomes the thing. And yeah, there are Gulf wind projects, by the way. So that is, but I also, by the way, live part-time in Netherlands, and Amsterdam and Netherlands have tons of wind energy. They really, of course, they're some of the originators, right, for wind energy. So they've really built out, and they're leaders in that space. There's a question there I'd like to answer to. And by the way, thanks for the shout out on the diploma. Yeah, woo, nice. But there is a question there asking what helped me make the jump to running my own company while still being able to. That is one of the reasons I did do it, was it is absolutely a great question, because one of the most difficult things to do when you shift levels in your career is shed the stuff you really loved to do, and that's kind of goes with it. So when you get into executive leadership, it's once you start getting mid-level on up, it gets harder and harder, because you just end up doing all these things that are administrative and managerial, and you don't get to do the depth. One of the reasons I have my own company is so that I could pick that ratio and actually control it more. And I will say that you do have to make some sacrifices, but you don't go in-house right out of law school to make less than your secretary if you're motivated by money. So most of what I do is motivated by wanting to be at the table helping to solve the problems. If I wanted to make a lot more money, I would probably have to sacrifice some of that.
Perfect. Alrighty, well, thank you everyone for jumping on today. Thank you again, panelists. I think this was very informative just for myself again, but also for everyone that was on. I hope everyone, again, whether you're in Florida or sitting at home somewhere else, stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and we will all talk soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Wishing everyone the best. Nice to meet you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.